Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Thursday night here, getting ahead of this Friday 2-game slate in the W. 4-4 night on Thursday, only minus 0.4 units, being honest. I'll go over the record here with you guys in a second. Still up about 9 units on the WNBA season. Need to start getting back into the winning streak, though. Had 3 straight nights of like minus 0.2 units. So we're looking to get back into the wins column here and go up a couple units on Friday. I've got a couple best bets already. Also want to remind you on Friday, going to be going live at 3 p.m. Eastern with Burt Oaks doing some baseball. So if you want to get in on some baseball bets and some looks for the games that we'll have on Friday, definitely head to the YouTube page there on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll get that going for you. For now, let's get into everything you need to know for Friday's 2-game slate in the WNBA. Quick look at that record, 36-26 after a 4-4 night, still 10 games above 500 there, but just as important, if not more so, 8.78 units up on the season. So lost, like I said, about 0.4 there on Thursday night. Not too big of a harm, but we are looking to get it better here. The sides and totals continue to carry us, man. We still made money on those on Thursday. Did not make money on the play of props 2 and 3 as Angel Reese went off in the fourth quarter of garbage time in that Chicago Sky loss to the Aces. But we'll get it back here. Let's get into the first game of the night on Friday. Got the Dream in Connecticut, the Sun there on a back-to-back after a close overtime win on Thursday night that they barely pulled out against a much worse Mystics team. Alyssa Thomas played in that game, but she was questionable leading up to about a couple hours before tip. Ryan Howard is still going to be out, so we know Howard is out. I put Thomas on here just so you can monitor that stuff. It's still not late enough in the day here to understand what her status is for tomorrow. She looked fine in that game, watched pretty much the entirety of it there on Thursday. It was kind of frustrating because I thought the Sun would end up winning by a bit more. Did get the Brianna Jones bet under, which was nice. But for Thomas, keep an eye on that. For Ryan Howard, got to keep an eye on what's going to happen to her moving forward. But that is another huge loss for the Dream, who have had injuries for a lot of this season, including Howard now, who's missed the last 3 games or so. Head-to-head stuff here has only gone down for the Dream. All of their season stats have continued to dwindle. To be honest with you, there's a couple of things they do well, so we'll take a look at it. But without Ryan Howard and without a couple other players that they've missed throughout this season at this point, offensive rating worst in the league right now, and they are on a little 3-game slide that they're going to look to get out of against one of the best teams in the league here on the road. It's going to be tough, but the D rating has held up a little bit. It was all the way in the top 3 at points of this season, but over the course of this last losing streak, lost 7 of their last 9, including their last 3, like I mentioned, which have all been without Howard. Big reason for that. Got killed the other night by Minnesota as well. But the pace is slow. Everything is going to be slow. They're a team that really relies on having a lot of depth, playing a lot of players for about 15 to 20 minutes, and not really relying too much on one scorer. That's not going to be the case here. They're probably going to have to rely on Tina Charles a lot, as well as Alicia Gray in this one. So players to keep an eye on who will be carrying the bulk of the offense for the Dream. But still, that effective field goal percentage, worst in the league because they do not make threes and they don't really get anything very easy. The offense is a lot of players that do a lot of the same thing, to be honest with you, outside of Charles, who is their best down-low scorer. But other than her, not much of a down-low presence, and Alicia Gray is probably going to have to do a lot of driving to the rim, hoping to get some fouls, which is what she's very, very good at. For the Sun, it was really weird. They scored a bunch of points, 94 with overtime on Thursday, but that offense was stagnant. Outside of Tyasha Harris, who really carried them for most of that game on offense, they didn't really see much from even players like Alyssa Thomas, who, like I said, looked pretty healthy, but was struggling a ton. This is all the same stuff we know for this team. They're going to play slowly as well. Both these teams going to not get very many possessions in this game at all. Big rebound advantage for the Sun, who remain the best rebounding team in the league. Second best defensive rating, actually got better after this last game here, jumped up into second after being about 3rd in defensive rating. So it's weird because the Mystics were able to get a lot of points out of them, mostly in the first quarter. But either way, we're going to see the Sun probably a little bit tired here, so not sure how much you want to rely on them. Looking at the Dream offense, it is tough to find where they are good and excel, right? So they are second best in terms of free throw attempt rate. I mentioned Alicia Gray, big reason for that. Tina Charles as well, 2 players that do get to the line a really good amount for this Dream squad. But there's nothing else. I mean, they are dead last in points in the paint, 3rd worst in terms of fast break points. They don't really get many second chance points, roughly like 8th in the league in second chance points. So there's just nothing easy coming for them. Don't really even get points off of turnovers, which you would have expected from a team that really focuses on defense, you would think that they might be able to at least turn the other team over. But no, it's more of a bend, don't break kind of defense, not really a put pressure on you to get those steals and then get out in transition. Going to be trouble for them. Now, the Sun, it happens to be that they're not as strong in the areas that the Dream are good on offense, but they're still not bad. I mean, 7th in terms of opponent free throw attempt rate. Okay, that's going to be where the Dream are really going to have to live here if they're going to keep this thing close. And as far as the paint point go as well, yes, the Dream are bad at it. Sun, that's not where they're strongest, to be honest with you, in terms of limiting paint points, but they do not let you get out in the fast break. Mostly this is just about showing you how bad the Dream are at mostly everything, and at least good at one thing, which is getting to the free throw line. On the other side of the ball, though, the Dream might have a shot at limiting this Sun offense. Points off of turnovers are huge for the Sun, as well as second chance points, points in the paint, and their free throw rate. All things that the Dream are pretty good at limiting, to be honest with you. Second best in terms of their turnover percentage. They're not giving up a ton of points off of turnover because they take care of the ball. The second chance points, don't give up many of those. Do a pretty good job of defensive rebounding. Paint points, all right, 6th in the league, so I'm right in the middle of the pack. But this Sun offense is top 4, not necessarily its strongest point. DeWanna Bonner has been getting to the rim a good amount on those drives, but other than that, not something you have to worry about too much with the Sun. It's really about pace. It's really about having good spacing and trying to get an open drive and kick for them. But then the free throw rate too, something they do really well. Like I mentioned, they drive and get to the bucket as much as they can. That's where the Sun are also pretty good. They don't foul too often, and they're still able to play some pretty good defense near the basket. So they might actually have a shot in this game. And I might as well just let you know that is the bet. I'm going to take them to cover 8.5. In part because this opened at DK at plus 8.5. Once FanDuel got on the market, they got it at 7.5 is where they opened things up. So a little bit of a discrepancy in the price between two of the major books there led me to go immediately as I was, getting ready to do this video here and putting stuff together. I was like, let me get this in. And I actually put it in the Discord right away to make sure that those folks in the Discord there got this bet at the same number that I got it at. But look, back-to-back games here for the Sun. They just played a really long game, a much more difficult game on the road. Now they're going to take that 6.5-hour drive, they'll take an hour flight back to Connecticut from DC. But regardless, it's still having to get on a plane, go back home, right? So that on no rest is a huge thing here. And like I was showing you, I mean, the Dream match up pretty well as another slow, choppy team that does excel in the areas that the Suns also excel. And that's a big reason why I think that they can hang with them in this matchup. And also Alyssa Thomas, I do think there's reason to at least think she's not going to get the same amount of minutes, or perhaps they rest her in general against one of the worst teams in the league now in the Dream. Makes sense that they would be able to give her a little bit more of a breather after she was questionable to play originally in the Thursday night game. She did play, and she played a good amount of minutes, but all the more reason that I don't know that she'll be 100% in this game. Keep an eye on her status, but I think this is good enough at 8.5 to take for the Dream to cover this one against a poorly rested Sun squad. Next up on the slate, the other game we've got here, the Sparks are visiting the Phoenix Mercury. Two teams going in the opposite direction, by the way. We should make that very, very clear. In the last 6 games, the Mercury are 4-2. I use that number because that's the moment that they got Brittney Griner back, is for the last 6 games, and they have been a better team. And we'll take a look at that here in a sec. For the Sparks, Lexi Brown looking bad. Like, she's not going to be coming back for a while. I think she might have just had surgery is what I read. So we're not going to be seeing much of her. And that is a problem because she was coming into her own this season as well and had a good season last year. And then Lacia Clarendon, she's also out. They could use another big down low. She'd be really helpful. She was getting about 15, 16 minutes before she went down a couple games ago. So we'll see if she's able to make it back in the near future, but she is out for this one. And the Mercury are healthy, finally. There's nobody on their injury report that you need to know about at this point. So they're going to be moving forward with, like I said, they're 4-2. in their last 6 games, as opposed to this Spark squad, who is 0-6 in their last 6. Big time struggles for them. So like I said, 2 teams moving in the opposite direction. But let's look at the head-to-head stuff for both these squads. So this is for the season-long stats, and I want to show you what Brittney Griner has done, how she's impacted this Mercury squad since she came back 6 games ago. But let's just start with the overall numbers through the first roughly 16 games for both these squads. Bad on offense and defense, both in the bottom 4, if you will. Bottom 3, rather, in terms of their offensive and defensive ratings. Pace, okay, it's gone up for the Mercury. They've become one of the faster teams in the league, have been there for a lot of the season, but they have also gotten faster in the last 7 to 8 games, which is interesting because that's when Griner came back. As far as the rebounding goes, weirdly, the Phoenix Mercury haven't even gotten better with Griner back, but they're still 9th in rebound percentage on the season. Sparks have a little bit of an advantage there. We know Hamby is going to be one of the better rebounders, probably the best rebounder on the floor. That'll be a pretty good matchup with Griner, but they are overall as a team better at rebounding right now than the Mercury. And as far as shooting goes, both middle of the pack, not too many threes coming from the Sparks, a lot of them coming from the Mercury. So let's look a little bit more at actually how Griner has impacted things here before we get into those offenses. But it's one of the more surprising things is if you go to the rebounding and watch it not get any better. In fact, they've gotten worse in the rebounding column there, which is the second from the bottom since Brittney Griner came back. In the last 6 games, they've gotten up, though. They're 6th in offensive rating, better than that 9th. 5th in defense, much better than that 9th, and that they were without her. And then as far as the pace goes, 3rd in pace. They're not going to really change that up too much. We know they want to get out into transition as much as they can and keep this, or at least keep the pace of the game up, not use up too much of the shot clock, and pull some of those threes, which is what they shoot the most. The effective field goal percentage also a little bit better, but it's not even really because of BG as directly taking the shots as much as it's also the fact that the defense collapses on her, which allows the 3-point shooters for the Mercury, which they prioritize, to get a few more shots up. Looking at the Sparks offense, it's tough to once again find things that they're better than, say, 6th in the league. These are the 2 things that they excel at the most on offense. They are 3rd in free throw attempt rate, and they do get the 6th most amount of second chance points. So Hamby doing a lot of work there. Really what that means is Dearica Hamby is the one who's getting the free throws. She's the one who's getting the second chance points. She is the star of this team without much of a supporting cast. For the Mercury, they do struggle limiting second chance points. We showed you not a very good rebounding team. And free throw rate, all right, 6th in the league in terms of allowing free throws to the other team. So they will foul you a decent amount, but it's also middle of the pack stuff for them. Don't really give that much of an edge to the Sparks, especially with Griner back and able to limit what Hamby wants to do. This is where the mismatch occurs. The Mercury are a 3-point shooting team. They take the second most, they make the 4th most, and they also get those points off of turnovers with pretty good defense, but mostly it's just transition. If they get a turnover, they are going. There's really no holding up and waiting to set up the offense. They want to get the best shot as soon as the best shot is available to them, right? They keep that pace up and take a lot of threes in transition as well. This is where the Sparks suck, for lack of a better way to put it. They give up the 8th most attempts or even worse at really limiting those attempts from going in. They give up the 3rd most threes made per game in the league. Turnover percentage, worst in the league. Not going to be helpful when you're going up against a team that gets the 2nd most points off of turnovers in the league. So how do we bet this? I'm going to go with a team total over for the Phoenix Mercury here. That I should be at about 87.5. Haven't been able to find that this early on in these lines as I'm recording this the night before, but that is about what it's at. If you take their spread at about 9.5, 10 points, and you look at that compared to the total at about 166 and a half or so, this should be about 87.5 points that we expect the Mercury to get in this one. I don't really trust the Sparks to come along for the ride, as they say. They're losing their games by an average of 11 points per game in the last 6 since they've been on this losing streak. The Mercury at home, though, big time at home, really like some stark splits for them. They score a bunch more at home. And since Griner's come back, they're at about 92 points per game at home, which is a 3-1 record that they've accumulated in the 4 games that Griner has now played since she's been back in their own building, right? The Sparks getting killed, man. They are allowing about 89 points, well, a little bit more than 89 points per game over the course of their last 6 during this losing streak. And a big part of it is they can't stop the 3 and they turn the ball over, which leads to points for teams like Phoenix who are going to get out in transition. So I'm just going to rely on them to do the bulk of the work here and get over 87.5 points. If it's at 88.5, I would still play that to the over here. I think you can play this up to about 88.5 and still feel like you have a pretty good edge for this Mercury squad to go over. As we close things out, quick reminder, outlier.bet. If you do not yet have an account with them, you can get 7 free days there if you use the code, just use the link that's in the description of the video. That'll help you get in there and check it out. Also got the Discord live, really good looks from the homies in the WNBA channel. So we're going to continue to rely on my people as well for some looks here. I'll probably be throwing a few of these player props after we get a little bit more understanding of what these markets look like in the player prop realm, which happens a lot closer to game time time in the WNBA. Some stuff available the night before, but a lot of it's going to start coming out tomorrow around noon or so. So keep an eye on that. The Discord's where we'll be dropping those plays for the play of props. As you know, the sides and totals have been way better. So if you want to stick to those as far as tailing goes, I totally understand that. I'll be back tomorrow with that MLB stream at 3 p.m. Eastern with Burt Oaks. Also going to have projections and picks for Saturday slate on Friday tomorrow as well. So check that out. Subscribe to the page if you would. Until I see you next, happy betting.